Sometimes the simplest of conversations can have the most profound impact on us, particularly when we're ready to hear the message. Hi everyone, Chris Natzke here with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching with your Mind of a Champion tip of the week. Back in 2014, I went on a life-changing trek when I walked the Camino de Santiago. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the Camino, it's a 500-mile walk across northern Spain, starting in western France and going all the way to its pilgrimage stop in Santiago, Spain. And many people have been doing this for thousands of years. In fact, it was one time a work of penance in the church that people would walk to Santiago, which was the birthplace of Christianity in Europe. But many people today will do it for a time of introspection, of spiritual connection, and just some time to really evaluate your life. So anyway, I went and did this in 2014, and it's often said that the way you do your life is the way you'll do the Camino. And that was certainly the way it was for me. I basically, for the first 2 weeks of my journey, would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd be hitting the trail at 6. I'd be walking 4 hours straight to my next destination, almost treating it like an athletic event. And then I had a situation that caused me to realize how important it would be for me to slow down. And that's when things really began to evolve for me and really open up for me. And it's when I got to experience what I'm going to share with you today, when I met a woman from Toulouse, France, named Cecile. Now, the morning that I met Cecile, I was on the road on the Camino, and generally speaking, the way that you get around on the Camino is with this series of yellow arrows that points to where you need to go. So there are some maps, but there are really no signs or anything. They're just these little yellow arrows. So I'm walking straight on the path, and all of a sudden I hear someone yell from behind me, "Stop, stop, that's the wrong way." And so I stopped, and that's when I met Cecile, and she appropriately pointed out that I had missed the yellow arrow and that I was supposed to go to the left. So we began walking together for about an hour, just chit-chatting and getting to know one another. And then I felt it was time for me to move on. So I went on my way. My gait was a little faster than hers, and continued to walk for another 2-3 hours until I stopped for lunch. And I'm sitting at a cafe, which was adjacent right to the trail. And after I'm seated there for about 30 minutes, all of a sudden I see Cecile come over the hill. And as soon as she spots me, she starts waving frantically. And she comes over to me a moment later and asks if she could sit down and have lunch with me. So of course we did, and we began another great conversation. And she asked me what I did. And I said, well, I'm a martial arts instructor, I'm a speaker, and I'm a coach. She goes, "You're a coach? Oh my gosh, you're a life coach." "That's exactly why I'm on the Camino." She said, "My life was so out of balance that my boss made me get a life coach. In fact, I was so out of balance that my boss said if I didn't hire a life coach, he would fire me." So anyway, we began to talk more and more, and she basically began to share on how transformational that conversation was with her coach, and that now she was on the Camino. And then she stopped and she said, "You know, I have spoken to more people in the last 3 weeks than I have in the last 20 years. Wow," I thought. Then she said something that totally touched my heart. She got a little quiet, and I could tell she was being introspective, and we were having this discussion on a Friday afternoon. And she looked up finally and she said, "You know, Tuesday was my mom's 82nd birthday." And she said, "I gave her a call to wish her happy birthday. And for the first time in my life, I told my mom I loved her." Wow. Well, she was crying, then I started crying. And the whole idea there is I realized in that moment how valuable relationships are in our lives. And are we really taking the time to notice people, to connect with those that we love the most, and to stop and say that we love them? You know, I'm sharing this message about 6 or 7 weeks after losing my stepdad, Dan. And Dan was an incredibly important man in my life. Not only did he play a father role for me, but he also played Grandpa Dan for both my boys, as well as my niece and nephew. And, you know, he passed, and I miss him to this day. You know, I'm going to miss our conversations that we would have on the front porch. I'm going to miss when I would visit and he would lay down the newspaper in the morning with an article that I knew was going to be the topic of our discussion. And I'm going to miss being able to tell him that I love him. So this week, this holiday season, take some pause. Think about the people that you can reach out to connect to. Those that are close to you, those that maybe were close and you're not that close right now. That you can reach out to them and tell them how much they mean to you. And you don't have to walk 500 miles to do it. You might be walking straight down the hall of your house. But take some time and tell those people close to you that you love them. Thanks so much for watching. It's been Chris Natzke with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching. And we'll see you next time on the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week.